The corridor was silent except for the hum of weapons powering up. Taeyang could feel every gun pointed at him, every soldier ready to fire. He kept his hand away from his weapon, the other supporting Hana, who was barely able to stand. One wrong move and this entire situation would explode into violence that would cascade across the galaxy. Queen Isaven's flames burned so hot that the air around her shimmered. Her purple eyes fixed on Taeyang with the intensity of a star going nova. "Human, step away from my daughter. If you have harmed her, I will personally ensure your species remembers this day for the brief time you have left to exist." "Mother, please listen," Hana said, but her voice was weak. The fight through the maintenance corridors had drained what little strength she had recovered. "He didn't harm me. He saved me." "She is confused," a Velthari noble said. "Poisoned and manipulated. This is clearly a human deception." Admiral Doyen stepped forward, his own weapon drawn but not aimed at anyone specific. "If this soldier harmed your princess, he would have run. Instead, he brought her here. That should tell you something." "It tells me humans are cunning," the Queen said. "It tells me they create elaborate lies to cover their crimes." Taeyang felt the situation spiraling beyond control. Words weren't going to work. The anger was too old, the wounds too deep. Both sides saw what they expected to see, what generations of war had taught them to see, an enemy standing beside their princess. Proof of treachery. Then Hana did something Taeyang hadn't expected. She pulled away from his support, standing on her own despite how much it cost her. She walked forward, placing herself between him and her mother. Between the human soldier and every Velthari weapon pointed his direction. "If you want to kill him," Hana said clearly, "you'll have to burn through me first." The Queen's flames flickered in shock. "Hana, move aside." "No, Mother. Not this time. Not for this." Hana's own flames ignited around her hands, weak but present. "This human found me dying in a cargo bay. He gave me medicine that saved my life. He stayed with me when he could have left me to die and prevented this war. He fought beside me when mercenaries tried to finish what they started. He is the reason I'm alive to tell you that this entire situation was engineered by someone else." "What do you mean?" Admiral Doyen asked. Hana pulled out the piece of Krell technology she had kept. She threw it onto the floor between the two sides. "Krell Syndicate mercenaries attacked me. They used poison designed specifically to suppress Velthari abilities. They sabotaged the communication systems to keep me isolated. They planned for me to be found dead, with evidence pointing to human involvement. Someone hired them to restart this war." The Velthari guard who had helped them fight stepped forward. "She speaks truth, my queen. We found the princess and this human fighting mercenaries together. The mercenaries carried Krell weapons and bore Krell markings. One of the human soldiers confirmed it. I saw the same, Admiral. The corporal was protecting the princess, not holding her hostage." Queen I-7's flames dimmed slightly, confusion replacing fury. She looked at her daughter, really looked at her, seeing the injuries and exhaustion but also the determination. "Who would do this? Who benefits from continued war?" "Anyone who profits from it," Taeyang said quietly. "Arms dealers, mercenary companies, reconstruction corporations. The Krell Syndicate has worked for all of them. This war has made a lot of people very rich. Peace would end that." Admiral Doyen lowered his weapon first. "We need to investigate this, fully and immediately. If we've been manipulated, we need to know by whom." "Agreed," the Queen said. And her flames died away completely. She moved to her daughter, touching Hana's face gently. "Are you truly unharmed?" "I'm alive because of him," Hana said, looking back at Taeyang. "He had every reason to let me die. His friends were killed by our forces. He could have just walked away and let the war start. But he chose to save an enemy instead." The Queen turned to Taeyang and he saw her expression change. "Not to friendship or trust, but to something that might become respect someday. You saved my daughter's life." "I'm a medic," Taeyang said simply. "It's what I do. Even for enemies?" "Especially for enemies. Anyone can save their friends. It takes something more to save someone who's supposed to be your enemy." The corridor remained tense, but the immediate threat of violence had passed. Security teams began standing down. Weapons were lowered but not holstered. Trust would take time, but at least people were talking instead of shooting. Admiral Do-hyun called for his intelligence officers. Queen Isaven summoned her investigators. Within hours, both sides were working together to uncover the conspiracy. The Krell technology led them to payment records. The payment records led to shell companies. The shell companies led to a network of war profiteers who had been manipulating both governments for years. The investigation revealed a web of corruption that shocked everyone. Military officers on both sides taking bribes to prolong the conflict. Defense contractors sabotaging peace talks, politicians receiving kickbacks from weapons manufacturers. The Krell Syndicate had been just one part of a massive conspiracy to keep humans and Velthari killing each other. When the full scope was revealed, both the Queen and the Admiral realized how close they had come to dancing to someone else's tune, how they had almost destroyed each other to make criminals rich. The anger that had been directed at each other turned toward their common enemy. Joint operations were planned, human and Velthari forces coordinating for the first time, not to fight each other but to hunt down the conspirators. The treaty talks resumed, but now with genuine cooperation instead of forced civility. The two species had discovered they worked well together when they had a common purpose. Hana and Taeyang were asked to participate in the joint operations. Their coordination during the escape had impressed the military observers. They were living proof that human and Velthari could work together effectively. High Command wanted them visible, wanted other soldiers to see that cooperation was possible. The mission against the Krell Syndicate headquarters was brutal, but successful. Human tactical precision combined with Velthari firepower proved devastating. Taeyang and Hana led a strike team that captured the Syndicate leadership. When the mercenaries who had attacked Hana saw her walking beside a human soldier, both of them armed and coordinated, they surrendered without a fight. The conspiracy was dismantled. Those responsible were arrested or fled to distant parts of the galaxy, where neither human nor Velthari law reached. The peace treaty was signed, and this time both sides meant it. Queen Isaven held a ceremony to honor Taeyang for saving her daughter's life. She bestowed on him honors usually reserved for Velthari warriors. She called him a friend to her people. Admiral Dohyun stood beside her, adding human military decorations to the alien ones. Taeyang accepted them awkwardly, still uncomfortable with being called a hero. But Hana understood. After the ceremony, she found him standing alone at an observation window, watching the human fleet preparing to depart. The Velthari ships were doing the same, both sides returning home, to actually rebuild instead of preparing for the next battle. "You look troubled," Hana said, joining him at the window. "Most people would be celebrating." "I keep thinking about everyone who died before this," Taeyang said. "All the people who didn't get to see peace. My unit, your soldiers, all of them dead because some criminals wanted to make money." "I know," Hana said quietly. "I think about them too. The soldiers who followed me into battle. The people who died fighting an enemy that wasn't their real enemy." They stood in silence, two warriors mourning the same losses from opposite sides. Then Hana pulled something from her pocket, a small crystal that glowed with internal fire. "Among my people, when a warrior respects another warrior, they give a flame crystal. It's a piece of our inner fire made solid. I want you to have this." Taeyang took the crystal carefully. It was warm in his hand, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "I don't have anything like that to give you." "Yes, you do." Hana pointed at his uniform. "Your medic insignia. The symbol of someone who protects life. That's worth more than any weapon." Taeyang unpinned his medical insignia and handed it to her. She attached it to her own uniform, beside the royal crest of her family. Human and Velthari symbols side by side. "What happens now?" Taeyang asked. "After everyone goes home?" "We rebuild," Hana said. "We teach our people to see each other differently. We tell the story of what happened here. How a human soldier and a Velthari princess proved that enemies don't have to stay enemies. That's a lot of weight to carry. Then it's good we're not carrying it alone." They watched the ships preparing to depart. Human and Velthari vessels moving around each other with coordination instead of conflict. Throughout the galaxy, people were watching, wondering if this peace would last. Hoping that maybe finally the killing was really over. The story spread across human space within days. The tale of Corporal Taeyang, who found the enemy princess dying and chose to save her instead of letting war solve his problems. It spread through Velthari territory just as fast. The story of Princess Hana, who defended a human soldier from her own people because he had shown her that honor existed on both sides. Both stories became legends. Proof that individuals could change the course of history, that one person chosen. The space station hung in the darkness like a silver jewel, floating between two worlds that had been trying to destroy each other for 30 years. Inside the massive diplomatic hall, representatives from Earth and the Velthari Empire gathered for what everyone hoped would be the final peace negotiations. The air was thick with tension, old wounds, and barely contained hatred. Queen Isavan sat on her floating throne, her crystalline skin shimmering under the artificial lights. She was ancient by human standards, having ruled her empire for over 2 centuries. Her eyes, deep purple and knowing, watched the human delegation with careful attention. Beside her stood her daughter, Princess Hana, who looked nothing like the dignified queen. Where her mother was calm and controlled, Hana radiated barely contained power. Her skin glowed with an inner heat, and wisps of smoke occasionally drifted from her fingertips when she grew annoyed. The humans called her the Crimson Flame. The Velthari called her the Heir of Fire. Everyone called her dangerous. On the other side of the hall, the human military delegation stood in their dress uniforms. Admiral Do-hyun led them, his chest decorated with medals from 3 decades of war. Behind him stood various officers, diplomats, and soldiers chosen to represent humanity at this crucial moment. Among them was Corporal Tae-yang, a young medic who had recently been transferred to infantry after his medical unit was wiped out in the war's final major battle. Tae-yang didn't want to be here. He wanted to be anywhere else. Every time he looked at the Velthari delegates, he saw the faces of his friends who hadn't come home. He saw Corporal Minji, who had joked about opening a coffee shop after the war. He saw Private Junho, who carried pictures of his little sister everywhere. He saw Lieutenant Bora, who had saved his life twice before a Velthari plasma strike turned her to ash. But orders were orders, and someone had decided that having surviving soldiers at the peace talks would send the right message. Tae-yang wasn't sure what message that was supposed to be. The reception began with formal speeches. Human diplomats talked about peace and cooperation. Velthari nobles spoke in their musical language about ending bloodshed. Everyone used careful words that meant nothing while both sides kept their weapons ready, just outside the station. 2 massive fleets sat in the void, waiting to see if this peace would hold or if they would need to start killing each other again. Everything was going according to plan until Lord Velkar, a high-ranking Velthari noble, made an observation about human casualties. He didn't mean it as an insult exactly. He was simply noting that humans bred quickly and could replace their losses faster than the Velthari could. It was stated as a tactical fact, the kind of thing military analysts said in strategy meetings. But to the humans in the room, it sounded like their dead friends and families meant nothing, that they were just numbers to be replaced. Tae-yang felt his hands curl into fists. Around him, other soldiers tensed. Admiral Do-hyun's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Diplomacy required swallowing pride and anger. Princess Hana, however, had no such restraint. Flames burst to life around her hands, not threatening but visible to everyone in the room. Her purple eyes fixed on Lord Velkar with an intensity that made the noble step backward. "We speak of ending death," Hana said, her voice carrying across the silent hall. "And you speak of how easily they can make more lives to throw away. Perhaps you have forgotten what peace actually means." Queenie Seven touched her daughter's shoulder, a gentle reminder of where they were and what was at stake. The flames flickered and died. Hana pulled away from her mother's touch and walked out of the diplomatic hall without another word. The guards parted for her automatically. No one tried to stop the princess when she was angry. The reception continued, but the mood had shifted. Everyone was more careful now, more aware of how easily things could fall apart. Tae-yang found himself thinking about the princess's words. He had expected arrogance from the enemy heir, not anger on behalf of human casualties. It didn't fit with the stories he'd heard about the Crimson Flame. 3 hours later, Queen Isavan summoned her daughter to attend the preliminary treaty signing. It was a ceremonial event, a show of good faith before the real negotiations began. The princess's presence was required, but Princess Hana didn't come. The queen sent attendants to find her. They checked her quarters. They searched the recreation areas. They scanned the entire diplomatic wing. Princess Hana was nowhere to be found. Her personal guard hadn't seen her since she'd dismissed them after leaving the reception. The station's internal sensors showed no trace of her unique heat signature. The princess had vanished. Within minutes, the station went into full lockdown. Blast doors sealed sectors. Security forces mobilized. The diplomatic smiles disappeared, replaced by accusations and drawn weapons. Queen Isaven's calm shattered like glass. Her purple eyes blazed with a mother's fury and a queen's authority. "Where is my daughter?" she demanded. "What have you done?" Admiral Dohyun stepped forward, his own hand on his sidearm. "We have done nothing. Your princess left of her own accord. Perhaps she decided she didn't want peace after all." "Hana would never abandon her duty," the queen said, and her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. "She was taken by your people." "That's absurd," Dohyun shot back. "Why would we risk war by kidnapping your heir during peace negotiations?" "Perhaps because humans are treacherous by nature," Lord Velkar suggested, and this time there was no mistaking the insult. The human soldiers reached for their weapons. The Velthari guards did the same. Only the presence of the Queen and the Admiral prevented the diplomatic hall from becoming a battlefield. Queen Isaven raised her hand, and silence fell. When she spoke, her voice was cold as the void outside. "You have 48 hours to return my daughter unharmed. If she is not returned, I will consider it an act of war. My fleets will reduce every human world to ash. I will personally burn your homeworld until nothing remains but memories and regret." "We don't have your daughter," Admiral Dohyun said, but his voice carried less certainty now, because if humans hadn't taken the princess, then where was she? And who had taken her? The Velthari delegation left the station immediately, returning to their flagship. Within hours, their entire fleet had weapons powered and targeting solutions locked on the station and the human fleet beyond. The human forces responded in kind, spreading out into defensive formations and preparing for battle. Taeyang stood in the barracks with the other soldiers, listening to officers shout orders and prepare for war. Again. Always again. He thought about the princess's angry defense of human casualties. He thought about the convenience of her disappearance right when peace seemed possible. He thought about who would benefit most from renewed war, and he wondered if everyone was asking the wrong questions. The countdown to war had begun. Somewhere on the station, a princess was missing, and somewhere in the shadows, someone was very pleased with how their plan was unfolding. They moved through the maintenance corridors slowly, Hana leaning on Taeyang for support when her strength wavered. The station's emergency lighting cast everything in shades of red, turning the metal walls into something that looked like the inside of a dying star. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every sound echoed strangely in the confined spaces. Taeyang kept checking his scanner, watching for life signs or heat signatures that would indicate someone nearby. The device showed nothing but their own readings. That should have been comforting. Instead, it made him more nervous. The people who had attacked Hana were professionals. They would know how to avoid standard detection. "How much further to the main sections?" Hana asked, her breath coming harder than it should. She was pushing herself, using energy her body didn't have yet. "About 2 kilometers through these maintenance tunnels," Taeyang said. "Then we need to pass through 3 security checkpoints. Those will be the dangerous parts. Both human and Velthari security will be on high alert. When they see us together, they'll think the worst," Hana said quietly. "Your people will think you kidnapped me. Mine will think you're holding me hostage. Then we tell them the truth and hope someone listens before they start shooting. You have more faith in people than I do." Before Taeyang could respond, his scanner flared with multiple contacts, life signs closing fast from behind them, at least 5 individuals moving with tactical precision. The mercenaries had found them. "Run," Taeyang said, pulling Hana forward. They ran through the corridors, but Hana was still too weak for sustained movement. She stumbled, caught herself, kept going through sheer determination. Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. Boots on metal, weapons powering up, orders spoken in a language that was neither human nor Velthari. The first plasma bolt hit the wall beside Taeyang's head, leaving a molten scar in the metal. He pulled Hana around a corner and returned fire with his sidearm. His shots forced the mercenaries to take cover but didn't stop their advance. They had better weapons, better armor, and more numbers. "I can fight," Hana said, flames beginning to glow around her hands. "Let me fight. You're still weak. Those flames will drain you. Better than dying without trying," she had a point. Taeyang nodded, and they took defensive positions behind a support column. When the mercenaries rounded the corner, they met combined fire. Taeyang's bullets and Hana's flames working together. One mercenary went down, his armor melting from Hana's fire. The others scattered for cover, but the effort cost Hana. She gasped, her flames flickering. Taeyang caught her as she sagged against him. "Told you," she said weakly. "Not ready for combat yet." They ran again, using the momentary advantage to gain distance. Taeyang pulled Hana through a side passage, then another, trying to lose their pursuers in the maze of corridors. His medical training told him Hana was operating on reserves she didn't have. Her body temperature was spiking and dropping erratically as she burned through energy trying to maintain her flames. They emerged into a larger maintenance chamber, and Taeyang realized his mistake immediately. This room had only one exit, the one they'd entered through. He had trapped them in a dead end. The mercenaries appeared at the entrance moments later, weapons raised. 5 of them. Professional killers who had already proven they could take down a Velthari princess. They spread out, covering all angles, no escape. No second chances, their leader spoke in accented human standard. "Princess, you were supposed to die quietly. We'll make this quick." Flames erupted around Hana despite her exhaustion. "I am the daughter of Queen Isevan, the heir to the Velthari throne. You think I'll die quietly for your profits?" The mercenaries opened fire. Taeyang pulled Hana behind a support column as plasma bolts tore through the air where they'd been standing. He returned fire, taking down one mercenary but exposing himself to a shot that burned across his shoulder. Pain exploded through his arm. His weapon clattered to the floor. Hana screamed, not in fear but in rage. Her flames exploded outward in a wave that forced the mercenaries back. But the effort dropped her to her knees. She didn't have enough strength left. The poison was still sapping her power. She was burning herself out trying to protect them both. Taeyang grabbed his weapon with his good hand and continued firing. His military training took over, finding targets and eliminating threats even with an injured arm. But there were too many mercenaries and too few options. This was how they would die, he realized. Together in a maintenance chamber, trying to prevent a war that would start anyway. Then something unexpected happened. The door they'd entered through burst open again, but this time it wasn't more mercenaries. It was a Velthari warrior guard, followed by 2 human soldiers. They must have detected the weapons fire and come to investigate. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. The situation was exactly what the conspirators had wanted. Princess Hana injured and defending herself. A human soldier with a weapon. Mercenaries caught in the middle. It looked like a kidnapping attempt gone wrong. The Velthari guard raised his weapon at Taeyang. The human soldiers aimed at Hana. Everyone was about to start shooting everyone else, and the war would begin right here. "Stop," Hana shouted, her voice cutting through the confusion. "These mercenaries attacked me. The human saved my life. Don't shoot him." "The princess is being held hostage," one of the human soldiers said. "Drop your weapon, Corporal." "I'm not holding her hostage, you idiot. I found her dying and kept her alive. Those mercenaries work for the Krell Syndicate. They're trying to start the war." The mercenaries, seeing their plan collapsing, opened fire on everyone. The maintenance chamber erupted into chaos. Taeyang dove for cover, pulling Hana with him. The Velthari guard and human soldiers, faced with a common enemy, did what soldiers do. They started shooting at the people shooting at them. In the chaos of battle, old divisions became meaningless. Taeyang fought beside the Velthari warrior, both of them covering each other without thinking about it. Hana and the human soldiers coordinated fire, neither side questioning why they were working together. When you're being shot at, you shoot back. Species doesn't matter. The mercenaries fell one by one. The last one tried to escape, and the Velthari guard burned him down with plasma fire. Then silence fell, broken only by heavy breathing and the crackle of cooling weapons. Everyone stared at everyone else, processing what had just happened. Human and Velthari soldiers standing together over dead mercenaries. Princess Hana leaning on a human corporal for support. Evidence scattered across the floor that didn't match the story anyone had been told. "Someone needs to explain," the Velthari guard said carefully, his weapon still ready. "Before I report this to the Queen." "I'll explain," Hana said, straightening despite her exhaustion. "But first, help me walk. We need to reach the diplomatic sector. We're running out of time." They moved as a group through the station, an unlikely alliance of human soldiers and Velthari warriors protecting their princess. Word spread ahead of them. Security teams rushed to intercept. By the time they reached the secured zones, both human and Velthari forces had formed battle lines, weapons aimed at the approaching group. Queen Isevan was there, her face a mask of controlled fury. Admiral Doyen stood opposite her, hand on his weapon. The deadline was only minutes away. The fleets outside had already begun targeting sequences. One wrong move, one misunderstood word, and billions would die. They emerged into the corridor and everyone saw it. Princess Hana, battered and bleeding, being supported by a human soldier who was equally injured. Both of them looked like they had fought through hell together. Because they had, the Velthari guards raised their weapons at Taiyang. The human soldiers aimed at Hana. Everyone assumed the worst. This was the moment the conspirators had planned for. The moment that would start the war. Hana raised her hand, flames flickering weakly around her fingers. Not as a threat, but as a signal. "Mother, stand down. This human saved my life. Someone tried to kill me and blame humanity for it. Someone who wants this war to continue." But her mother saw only her daughter wounded beside a human enemy, saw the blood and the injuries, saw what looked like proof of human treachery. The queen's flames ignited, burning brighter than Taiyang had ever seen. Her voice carried the promise of genocide. "Release my daughter, now." The countdown to war had reached 0, and everyone's fingers tightened on their triggers. Hours passed in the darkness of the cargo bay. Taiyang worked steadily, replacing heat packs as they cooled and monitoring the princess's vital signs on his scanner. Her condition had stabilized but remained critical. The poison was still in her system, fighting against the counter-agents he had administered. Her body temperature climbed slowly, degree by painful degree. He tried the communicator again every 15 minutes. Still jammed. Whoever had sabotaged the princess wasn't taking any chances. They had planned this carefully, cutting off this entire section from the station's main systems. Taiyang was effectively trapped down here with no way to call for help or report what he had found. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was trying to save the alien princess to prevent a war. But no one knew where he was or what he was doing. For all anyone else knew, Corporal Taiyang had deserted his post. He would probably face court-martial when this was over, assuming there was anyone left to court-martial him after the war started. He checked the chronometer on his pad. 24 hours until the deadline. 24 hours to get the princess back to her people and convince them that humans weren't responsible. 24 hours trapped in a sabotage section of a space station, while 2 fleets pointed weapons at each other. The princess stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, clearer now than before. She looked around the cargo bay, taking in her surroundings, then focused on Taiyang. He saw the moment awareness returned, saw her remember what had happened, saw her realize she was alone with a human soldier. Flames burst to life around her hands. Weak flames, barely more than candlelight, but growing stronger. Her purple eyes fixed on him with suspicion and barely controlled fear masquerading as anger. "Stay back," she said, her voice rough. "I will burn you." Taiyang raised his hands slowly, showing he held no weapons. His sidearm sat on the floor beside his medical kit, well out of reach. "You were poisoned. I found you and gave you medicine. You're still sick. Those flames will use up energy you need to heal. You're lying. Humans took me, attacked me." The flames grew slightly brighter. "This is a trap. If I wanted to trap you, I would have called security and let you die," Taiyang said calmly. "I could have left you here and reported your location after the deadline. Instead, I gave you counteragents and have been keeping you warm for the last 6 hours." Hana looked at the heat packs surrounding her. The emergency blanket, the medical supplies scattered across the floor. Her scanner lay nearby, the one she must have been carrying when she was attacked. She could see the medical data on Taiyang's equipment showing her vital signs, the analysis of the poison in her system, the treatment protocols he had followed. The flames flickered uncertainly. "Why would you help me?" "We are enemies. Because I'm a medic," Taiyang said simply. "Helping people is what I do." Even when they're enemies, the flames died down to nothing. Hana sagged back against the shipping container, exhausted from even that small display of power. "Where are we?" "What happened?" "You're in a decommissioned cargo bay in Section D7. Someone poisoned you and left you here to die. The communication systems are sabotaged, so I can't call for help. And we have less than 24 hours before your mother starts a war." Hana closed her eyes. "I remember some of it. After I left the reception, I came down here to think. I needed space away from the politics and the lying. Then someone attacked me from behind. Multiple attackers. I tried to fight, but the poison was too fast. It suppressed my flames." She touched her chest where the weakened fire still struggled to reignite inside her. This poison was designed specifically for my people, not something humans would have. I noticed that too, Taeyang said. He pulled out a small piece of technology he had found near where she fell. I also found this. It's not human design, and it's not Velthari either. Hana took the device, studying it with growing understanding. Krell Syndicate. Mercenaries and assassins for hire. But who hired them? And why? Someone who benefits from continued war, Taeyang said. Someone who wanted you dead and humans blamed for it. The perfect excuse to restart the fighting. They sat in silence for a moment, processing the implications. The war between humans and Velthari had been profitable for many parties. Arms dealers, mercenary groups, reconstruction companies. Peace would end those profits. Some people had very good reasons to want the fighting to continue. I need to get back to my mother, Hana said, trying to stand. Her legs buckled immediately, and Taeyang caught her before she fell. Her skin was still cold to his touch, far colder than it should be. You're not strong enough yet, he said, helping her sit back down. The poison is still in your system. Your body temperature is barely halfway back to normal. If you try to move now, you'll collapse. I don't have time to rest, Hana snapped. Every minute I'm missing is another minute closer to war. My people are dying because I'm too weak to walk. Your people will definitely die if you try to walk out of here and collapse halfway, Taeyang countered. Give your body time to heal. Another few hours and you'll be strong enough to move. Hana wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. The warrior princess who was used to pushing through pain and weakness through sheer willpower. But her body betrayed her. Trembling with exhaustion, she was still too weak to even maintain her flames consistently. I hate this, she said quietly. I hate being helpless. I know the feeling, Taeyang said. I felt the same way when I couldn't save my unit. When all my medical training couldn't stop them from dying. Hana looked at him with new interest. You lost people in the war. My entire medical unit. They died in the last major battle. I survived because I was treating wounded in the rear when the attack came. By the time I got back to them, there was nothing left to save. He stared at his hands, remembering. That's when they transferred me to infantry. Told me they needed combat soldiers more than medics now that the war was ending. But you still carry medical supplies, Hana observed, gesturing to his extensive kit. Old habits, and apparently good ones since they let me save you. They fell into conversation after that, carefully at first, then with growing openness. Hana talked about growing up during the war. How she had been trained as a weapon from childhood. How everyone expected her to be the perfect warrior princess. The Crimson Flame who would lead her people to victory. No one asked if she wanted that role. No one cared that she hated killing. Taeyang talked about joining the military to help people, thinking medics would save lives and make a difference. He talked about the reality of war, about holding dying soldiers who called for their mothers, about the weight of all the people he couldn't save. I didn't want this war, Hana said. My generation grew up in it, but we didn't start it. That was our parents and grandparents, fighting over territory and resources and pride. We just inherited their hatred. Same on our side, Taeyang agreed. Most human soldiers I knew didn't care about the reasons for the war. We just wanted it to be over so we could go home. Do you think peace is possible? Hana asked. Real peace, not just politicians making speeches? Taeyang looked at her. This alien princess who should have been his enemy. They had spent hours together now, talking and sharing stories. She didn't seem like the monster from propaganda posters. She seemed like a person who was tired of war and wanted something better. I think it's possible, he said, but only if people like us make it happen. The politicians and generals will sign papers, but that's not real peace. Real peace happens when soldiers from both sides can sit together like this and see each other as people, instead of enemies. Hana smiled slightly, the first smile he had seen from her. It transformed her face, making her look younger and less burdened. You're very wise for a human soldier. I'm really not, Taeyang said. I'm just tired of death. They sat together in the darkness, enemy soldier and alien princess, talking about hopes for a future neither of them was sure they would live to see. Outside, fleets prepared for battle. Above them, people searched in all the wrong places. But here in their small pocket of isolation, two people from opposite sides of a war discovered they weren't so different after all. Hours passed. Hana's vital signs continued to improve. Her internal flames burned slightly brighter. She could maintain small fires on her fingertips now without exhausting herself. The poison was losing its grip. "I think I can walk now," she said finally. "We need to get out of here and stop this war." Taeyang checked his scanner. Her readings were still low but stable. She was right. They needed to move. The deadline was approaching and every minute mattered. He helped her to her feet. She was unsteady but standing. Together they began planning their escape from the sabotage section, not knowing that the mercenaries who had attacked her were still hunting, determined to finish what they had started. The station transformed into a maze of paranoia and accusation overnight. Human security teams tore through every corridor, searching for evidence that might prove their innocence. The Velthari refused to leave until the princess was found, their psychics forming search patterns that swept through the station like invisible fire. Both sides watched each other with weapons ready, waiting for someone to make the wrong move. Taeyang volunteered for the human search teams immediately. When his commanding officer asked why a combat medic wanted to hunt for a missing alien princess, he gave the only answer that mattered. He didn't want another war. He had seen enough death to last several lifetimes. If finding the princess could prevent millions more from dying, then he would search every inch of this station. The officer assigned him to Team 7, searching the lower maintenance levels. It was grunt work, checking storage rooms and access tunnels that no one important would bother with. The kind of assignment given to low-ranking soldiers so officers could say they had searched everywhere. Taeyang didn't mind. Sometimes the places no one bothered to check were exactly where things were hidden. He worked methodically through Section D7, scanning with standard equipment and checking every room against the station blueprints. Most of his team treated it like a formality, going through the motions. They didn't expect to find anything down here. The princess wouldn't be in maintenance areas used by repair crews and cleaning drones, but Taeyang had learned something during the war. He had learned to pay attention to small details that didn't fit. It was how he'd kept his medical unit alive through 3 major battles before the 4th one killed everyone but him. Notice the small things. Question what doesn't belong. In Section D7, Corridor 12, his scanner picked up a heat signature. Just a small one, barely registering. The system flagged it as a malfunction in the environmental controls. The station was old and small errors happened constantly. His team leader saw the reading and dismissed it immediately. "System glitch," the sergeant said. "These maintenance sections always throw false readings. Mark it for repair crew and move on." Taeyang stared at the reading. Something about it bothered him. He had spent years as a combat medic, learning to read medical scanners and interpret biological data. This heat signature didn't look like a mechanical error. It looked organic. Faint and fading, but organic. "Sergeant, I think we should check this," Taeyang said. "It's a system error, Corporal. We have 6 more sections to search before our shift ends." "Keep moving." The team moved on. Taeyang followed, but he marked the location on his personal datapad. He couldn't explain why, but something about that reading wouldn't leave his mind. Throughout the rest of the shift, he kept thinking about it. A faint heat signature in a restricted area, dismissed as mechanical failure. But what if it wasn't? When the shift ended and his team returned to the barracks, Taeyang made a decision. He downloaded the station schematics to his pad and plotted a route back to Section D7. Going back alone violated about a dozen regulations. Investigating without authorization could get him court-martialed. But 36 hours remained before the Queen's deadline expired, and after that, regulations wouldn't matter because everyone would be too busy dying. He grabbed his medical kit and a sidearm, then slipped out of the barracks during the shift change when security was lightest. The maintenance corridors were empty at this hour, lit only by emergency lighting that cast everything in shades of red and shadow. His footsteps echoed on metal grating as he descended deeper into the station's infrastructure. The heat signature had been in Corridor 12, near an old cargo bay that the schematics marked as decommissioned. Taeyang followed his scanner, watching the readings climb slowly. Not a system error. Definitely not mechanical. This was biological heat and it was getting stronger. He reached the cargo bay access door and found it unsealed. Someone had overridden the locks. Fresh blast marks scarred the walls nearby, the kind left by plasma weapons, Velthari weapons. Taeyang drew his sidearm and entered the bay slowly, using his combat training to clear corners and check angles. The cargo bay was massive and dark, filled with abandoned shipping containers and obsolete equipment. His scanner led him deeper into the maze of metal boxes, following the heat signature that grew stronger with every step. Then his boot touched something wet. He looked down and saw luminescent liquid on the floor, glowing faintly blue in the darkness. Velthari blood. Taeyang followed the trail around a shipping container and found her. Princess Hana lay crumpled on the floor, her skin pale and cold where it should have been warm and glowing. More of the luminescent blood pooled beneath her. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow. The legendary crimson flame looked like she was dying. Blast marks scorched the walls all around her position. She had fought here, fought hard based on the damage, but someone had overwhelmed her anyway, then left her here to die slowly. Taeyang's training took over. He dropped to his knees beside her, medical kit already open. His scanner confirmed what his eyes told him. Poison in her system. Something designed specifically to suppress Velthari abilities. Her body temperature was dropping to dangerous levels. Her flames were completely extinguished. Without immediate treatment, she had maybe 20 minutes left. He could run for help. Call security. Report the location. Let the proper authorities handle this. It was the right move tactically. The smart move. But his scanner told him she didn't have time for proper authorities. She had minutes, not hours, and something else bothered him. Something he had learned to recognize during the war. This felt wrong. The timing was too perfect. The location too convenient. Someone wanted the princess found dead, but not immediately. They wanted her found after the deadline expired, after the war started. Evidence that humans had killed her. If Taeyang left now to get help, she would die. The evidence would show a human soldier found her and left her to die. It would give the Velthari exactly the justification they needed to burn human worlds. But if he stayed and tried to save her, he might fail anyway. He was a combat medic, not a xenobiologist. He had some experience treating Velthari prisoners during the war, but his knowledge was limited. He could kill her by accident while trying to help. The princess's breathing hitched, growing more shallow. Blood continued to seep from her wounds. Time was running out. Taeyang made his choice. He activated his communicator first, trying to call for backup. Static filled the channel. He tried different frequencies. All jammed. Someone had sabotaged the communication systems in this section. Of course they had. Whoever did this had planned carefully. Fine. He would work alone. Taeyang pulled out his medical scanner and began a full diagnostic. Velthari physiology was different from human, but the basics were the same. Poison in the bloodstream, multiple wounds, severe hypothermia by Velthari standards. He had counteragents in his kit. Standard issue for medics who might need to treat alien casualties. He had to guess at dosages based on what he remembered from war. He injected the first counteragent, watching her vital signs. No change. He tried a second. Her breathing stabilized slightly. Good. He moved to the wounds next, applying coagulants that worked on Velthari blood chemistry. The bleeding slowed, but her temperature continued to drop. That was the real problem. Velthari were essentially living furnaces. Their bodies maintained extremely high temperatures compared to humans. When those temperatures dropped too low, their systems began to fail. Hana's internal fire was going out, and Taeyang had no way to reignite it. He did the only thing he could think of. He pulled out emergency heat packs from his kit, designed for treating human hypothermia in space. He activated them and packed them around her body, trying to warm her artificially. It wasn't enough. He added his own jacket, then wrapped her in an emergency blanket. Still not enough. Her eyes flickered open briefly, unfocused and confused. They fixed on him, and for a moment recognition flared. A human, an enemy. Her hand twitched and weak flames sparked on her fingertips. Defensive instinct. Don't, Taeyang said quickly, holding up his empty hands. I'm helping you. You were poisoned. You're dying. The flames flickered and died. She didn't have enough strength to maintain them. Her eyes closed again, and Taeyang wasn't sure if she had understood him or simply lost consciousness. He checked his scanner. Her vital signs were stabilizing but still dangerously low. He had bought her time, maybe an hour, but he was trapped in a sabotaged section of the station with a dying alien princess while two fleets prepared to destroy each other outside. Taeyang settled in beside her, maintaining the heat packs and monitoring her condition. Somewhere above, people were searching in all the wrong places. Somewhere in the shadows, conspirators were celebrating their success. But here in the darkness of an abandoned cargo bay, a human soldier refused to let his enemy die. not because of orders or duty or politics, simply because saving lives was what he did. It was what he had always done, even when the galaxy burned around him. The countdown continued. War drew closer, and Taeyang kept working, determined that at least this one person would survive.